So the sun has left us. She's pretty dark, and the wind is picked up, and it's whipping something fierce. And we got a fire going, and the campsite's pretty different in the dark with the wind. Time for bed, I think. One of my least favorite parts about camping is going out in the middle of the woods to take a crap in the middle of the night. Right now I got some kind of creepy crawly on my ass, but there you have it. Now it's back. I don't know. Luckily I don't live in like scorpion territory. Well, hello internet people. Long time no see. It's Lloyd from Historic Outdoors. And today I'm coming to you from Spednic Lake. This family of loons over my shoulder here. So, haven't done a video in a while again. My work schedule is pretty tight, but I managed to get away for a day. I was going to shoot some footage in the canoe yesterday, but coming here there were like 2-3 foot waves. I haven't got one of those waterproof GoPros, I just got an old Canon. This is actually a new camera. It's only the second video I've shot on it. The last time the autofocus kept screwing up, so half the video was in frame and in focus, and the other was blurry, so hopefully that doesn't happen this time. I got it turned off. Maybe the whole thing's out of focus, I don't know. So anyway, the world's kind of gone crazy. Or maybe it's always been that way. We're kind of living in a time where, with the internet at least, the news is pumped into your pocket 24/7, and sometimes you got to get away from that. I think you should probably not indulge in that any more than 5 or 10 minutes a day. Just find out what's going on and let the world keep on turning. Focus on your own life, your family, your friends. Because if you don't, you'll go crazy too, just like the rest of the world. So for me, this is a good spot to come out here. You don't see too many people. You see some loons, you see some eagles, lots of birds. Every now and again you see a moose or a bear or something, but it's a pretty good spot. Every now and again there's like a bass boat or something go by. There's a lot of good fish in this lake. There's, bass that are 1.5 to 2 foot long, and I've even seen like pickerel or pike or whatever they are pulled out of here that are 3 foot long, big fish. So it's a pretty popular spot, and there's a bunch of campsites around. Yesterday I met a group of like children's group or something. I'm not sure if they were Boy Scouts or what they were. A bunch of canoes, and they were not handling the waves well, so they didn't get very far into the lake system. But I'm on an island called Upper Todd Island, which is it's seen better days. It's not maintained the way it used to be. It's pretty rocky and lumpy. So had a pretty broken sleep last night, just sleeping on lumpy rocks. You try to pad up your sleeping pad as best you can by stuffing clothes underneath to kind of level it out. But anyway, well, I slept. So yesterday there was a lot of work to do, and it was quite a fight to get here in the wind. So I didn't manage to film anything, but it's about 7:30 now, and she's pretty calm, so I might put that canoe in, go for a little morning paddle, just to kind of warm up the muscles. I'm not a yoga guy. You see some of the hipsters doing yoga on rocks and stuff, and there was even some people in Ontario wrote a friggin' book about, yoga canoeing. Well, if that's what you're into, that's pretty cool, but I think I'm just gonna put the canoe on the lake and paddle for a little bit. maybe go hang out with the loons. So, I'm leaving Todd Island for a little morning warm-up. And she's pretty flat. A bass boat just went by and they tend to make a bunch of waves. So, if you're not a very experienced canoeist, probably best to stay clear of those. The worst ones are the pontoon party boats that can fit like 25 drunk people in a cooler. They got the canopy on the top of them, big aluminum boat with 2 giant pontoons. They push up some pretty serious wake behind them. But if you're an experienced canoeist, well, you can kind of have fun goofing off in the wake behind them. It's kind of fun. But if you're just starting out, you want to stay away from them, and if they go by you, turn the nose of your canoe into it. That way you're not taking waves over the side. I took a couple of waves over the side yesterday. It was pretty windy, and I'm kind of fighting it, traveling northwest, and the place I gotta go is directly west, but I can't go directly west. So every now and again, if the wave frequency was pretty good in my favor, I would point the canoe a little bit more westward. And of course that's when you have a wave or two break over the side. But all my gear is packed up, waterproof, and in those blue toxic waste barrels, and in dry bags and canvas packs and stuff. So no issues there, just wet knees. But today it is calm. Wouldn't it be great if the world was always like this? But into everyone's life there will be waves and wind and rain and storms, both figuratively, metaphorically, and all the other ways. Like I was saying, the world's kind of gone a little bit crazy. But maybe it always has been. In Canada, it seems our rulers are trying to tank the country. I don't think Europe is any better. I think America is maybe a little better off on account of the fact that they've got a pretty solid economy. But I don't think you'd want to live down there anyway. But oddly enough, see here on Spednic Lake, we are in Canada, but if I point the canoe over here, this is Border Lake. So once you get past that point, that is the state of Maine. It doesn't look any different, does it? Well, really it's not. America is a really nice place, much like Canada. It's a nice place to visit too. I think you got 4 distinct cultures in the US, maybe 5 or 6 now, but the ones that are always arguing and fighting with one another are cultures that came out of England in the late early 1600s. So you got your Appalachian Scots, and you got your Southern aristocracy, and you got your Protestant Yankees, and you got your Midwesterns, and they're always vying for who's going to control the purse strings. It's not much different here in Canada, I guess, but well, in the States you have minorities, you have Native Americans, and you have the Hispanics, and you have the African Americans. They all seem to, in spite of what you see on the news, in my experience anyway, all seems to be a little bit
more civil than what you see here in Canada sometimes. But maybe that's just bias on my part because I live here and I see more of it. But anyway, two vast nations with a lot of land that looks like this, a lot of lakes. I think it was John Kennedy said that we have a stewardship over this vast continent. And what nature has done is, by necessity of our geography, has made us allies and friends. It wasn't always so. I mean, there was the War of 1812, of course. But just down the river here in St. Croix, there's a little border town, St. Stephen, Maine. War of 1812. They only had one gunpowder storage facility between the two towns, and so during the War of 1812, they just both agreed, yeah, we're not going to fight over this. This is stupid. We'll just post one guy here, and all the orders will get lost. So when you live out in the country and you live in beautiful places like this, well, why would you want to turn it into a war zone, right? Those are the things that city people do and city people concerns. And that's what I am trying to get away from most of the time. We're in a bit of a rock garden here. The water's nice and high, so maybe we can avoid going over one, but I've left a pile of plastic in this lake on those rocks. You don't always see them when they're calm. They're easier to see in the wind. In the wind, they push up little waves which are instantly recognizable. Even then, you get preoccupied, you don't always see them. Yeah, so I'm paddling towards Maine. I'm not going to go there. It's probably a mile, open water. I'm just warming up the muscles before I start my morning chores. Gotta get a fire going, make some oatmeal, maybe a little bit of bacon. So last night, first night, I threw some steak in the freezer, froze that up, some mushrooms and some peppers and potatoes. I had a really good supper last night. First night you can do that. Your supper becomes less and less tasty as time goes on. I'm not out here for too long though. But boy, that steak and potatoes and mushrooms and sweet peppers all fried up in butter, man, that was some good. Yeah, she's really shallow here. About 10 or 15 years ago, I found a dead moose on this point. Probably had come out in the ice and had broken through, and could not get out of the hole, and so got hypothermia and died, and that's where I found him. Nature is cruel. So why is it that people like myself want to come out here and experience that cruelty? Well, I'm fond of saying that I have an intimate relationship with the unforgiving, kind of like the moose did. He had an intimate relationship with the unforgiving, and he died. Well, we're all gonna die. When you live in modernity, and you live in the city, and you have air conditioning, and you turn a button, and your house gets warmer, and you go to the fridge, and it's got lots of food, and even if it's expensive food, the cheap food is less good for you, theoretically. It's still there. So if I didn't have a backpack or a blue barrel full of food back at my campsite, probably the most effective way for me to get breakfast would be to drop a line and catch a fish. Otherwise, I'd be eating some kind of plant or some kind of root that tastes like hell. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy the things that modern life has to offer. I like my hot showers, I like my indoor plumbing, I like my refrigeration. My doctor told me once that plumbers have saved more lives than doctors ever could, and I agree with that. Sanitation, all of these things are huge benefits to modern life. But they also take something away from us. And I think we can have those, and we can still get out in the woods and have an intimate relationship with the unforgiving. Every time a man invents a new technology, he takes something away from the rest of us. Some technologies, you go from a stone axe to a bronze axe to an iron axe to a steel axe. Well, it's not that big of a change. It might be a quantum leap in the technology from a stone axe to an iron axe. The iron axe takes less time. You can cut more wood with the same amount of calories. But when you invent a chainsaw, well, now not everybody needs to own an axe. One man with a chainsaw can do more work in a day than I could do in a month probably with an axe. And I'm not that good with an axe, I'm just a hobbyist. I mean, 100 years ago there was another breed of men that used an axe all day long. I would imagine those fellows could put up more wood in a day than your average fellow with a chainsaw could today. But what I'm getting at is, with every leap in technology, you take away skills and they are forgotten. In a lot of cases, never to come back. So I apprenticed as a blacksmith when I was a kid because that was going to be a good career move. And there's a few fellows around that are doing it. Some guys are really, really good. And there's, a few big bearded hipster artisans that, they do good work and they're highly thought of. But we're a long ways away from the days where every village had a blacksmith. The reason why there's so many smiths in the world is when your village got invaded, the smiths didn't get killed. They got put to work as blacksmiths for the other side. And they also didn't go to war. They worked in the weapons industry. So as a result, there's a lot of smiths around. Not so much anymore. The smiths are computer guys and truck drivers and all of the things that we do in modern life. Because as technology has moved forward, less and less of those things are relevant, and they become these niche artistic endeavors. If you go way back, the Roman Empire fell. All of a sudden, everybody forgets how to write, and it's kept alive by monks on the edges of civilization up in the islands north of Scotland and Lindisfarne and places like that. And they developed writing to such a degree that they had these illuminated characters. They'd have letters that were the shapes of people and animals. Some of them are pretty funny, some of them are pretty rude, but I like that. And their script was just amazing, these illuminated manuscripts. And so they kept the flame burning for writing. And as you get on into the 14th century, well, writing is more prolific, and they say even your average peasant would know enough about reading and writing to make his mark and be able to check his names in the court rolls. by the time the 1500s roll around, the writing wasn't quite so pretty, because it wasn't just one guy sitting at a table trying to make it as pretty as possible. It was more utilitarian. More laws, less freedom. We've got to write those laws down. For some reason, the tax code is never done in an illuminated manuscript. But then along comes Henry VIII, and he's like, I want to control these monasteries, not only for their wealth, but I want to control these monasteries because of political reasons. Henry broke with the Catholic Church. Well, you couldn't have all these Catholic guys sitting around writing about what a bad king you were, so he dissolved the monasteries. Of course, not much before him, Johannes Kepler invented the printing press. We get the printing press, and all of a sudden nobody can control anything. You can just mass produce books, and man, people are going to get access to information. Can't have that. So we get 30 Years' War, and we get Tyndale burned at the stake because he translated the Bible into English. Can't have that. Can't have those normies reading and thinking for themselves. So we get that solved. We have 30 Years' War, and then we get into the American Revolution, product of the Scottish Enlightenment, arguably. You have the Enlightenment, and you have these people coming up with these ideas that men can govern themselves. We don't need kings. And so the Revolutionary War period, again, we're pointed at Maine for this part of my ramble. The Revolutionary War period, the Americans probably come up with one of the best systems of government on earth. And Ben Franklin looked at I think it was the Iroquois Confederacy. You have to check me on that. But basically he looked at what the Native Americans were doing. And they had all of these tribes. And they were independent tribes, states one might say. And they had a loose confederation where if something important was going on that needed all of them to get together, well, they would do that, and they would have like a chief that was in charge of that. Ben Franklin looked at that and said, that is genius. And because they had Enlightenment ideas, they threw in separation of church and state, and checks and balances on power. And then he said, I forget exactly what the quote was, but I'll give you a constitutional republic if you can keep it, or something like that. And the British Empire didn't like that much, so they enacted laws here in Canada, making sure that that could never happen. You only want to import the kind of immigrant to Canada that's not going to be a business leader or a leader of any kind. So basically for 100 years. Canada was, everything that the 13 colonies didn't want to be. So the next leap in technology after the printing press, one could arguably say, was radio. And then what do we get with radio? Well, we could go back further. We could say the telegraph, wired communication, and the transatlantic telegraph cable allowed them to send telegraphs from St. John's, Newfoundland, all the way to England for the first time. And that sped up communication to an amazing degree. If you knew Morse code, you had gatekeepers that knew Morse code. Not everybody knows it. I know how to do an SOS, but that's about it. Probably because I watched so many damn Titanic documentaries back in the day. We only had like a couple of channels, and history was one of them. But yeah, with telegraph, that really changed the concept of warfare, much like in King Henry's time. So much so that the Native Americans would go around shooting the insulators on the telegraph lines and break the lines so that the army couldn't get their messages through. And I'm assuming there was a lot of that going on too in Europe in the mid-1800s, post-Napoleon. But anyway, then we get to radio. Radio was effectively gate kept for a number of decades. And governments introduced laws so that you had to have a broadcast license. Even if you have a ham radio to this day, you have to have a ham radio license. So they want to make sure that you're not saying or doing anything too subversive. And with radio, we get World War I. Funny how these leaps in technology coincide with these massive battles. I wouldn't say that the two are related. It's probably a coincidence. But. And then we have the King of England delivering his first ever speech by radio, a historic moment. And then U.S. presidents doing the same. I remember hearing Teddy Roosevelt on radio, and he's kind of got this squeaky voice. You see him, he's got like this big mustache and looks like a, big guy. He was a cowboy out west, but really he was like some silk shirt rich guy from New York. And like myself, he wanted to get out to places like this. He wanted to go see the American West. He wanted to go see the Amazon. So he did those things, but he kind of had a squeaky voice. He was kind of like he was kind of like an outdoors nerd of the day, I guess. Created national parks. So after radio, we get television. Again, easily gate kept. Very easily gate kept. When I was a kid, we had 3 channels. 2 were fuzzy and 1 was French. Same thing in the States. You had ABC, NBC, I'm not sure what the other one was. PBS maybe, I don't know. Anyway, they didn't have too many channels either. And they all said the exact same thing. And TV, for the first time, we saw a little bit of World War II with TV, but mostly it was after the fact. But TV was live in everybody's homes during the Vietnam War. I was really young when the Vietnam War ended, so I don't have any memory of it. My first memory of a televised war was probably the Falklands, and there wasn't much TV footage of that either. And then of course we had Gulf War I. Everybody was like, wow, this is amazing. The missile, it goes right in that window. And when you're 17, 18, that seems pretty cool. Less so for the people inside the window. And TV lied us into that. The next evolution forward was probably the internet. It's doing all kinds of things. And then YouTube comes along. And all of a sudden the gates are broken. Everybody rushes the gates. Nobody has any idea what YouTube is, so they don't try to control it. Well, they sure do now. So you get everybody making YouTube videos, much like myself. And some of them are real successful at it because, they do procedurally generated content, or they, I don't know, they make videos that are way better than mine. I'm on a lake. I'm talking to the camera about things before breakfast. Yeah, so YouTube comes along and, well, they can't have that, can they? So everybody starts getting demonetized and shadow banned and all of those good things. And that's where we're at. in the middle of a leap of technology. And much like the 30 Years' War that came with the invention of the printing press, the internet has spawned a couple decades of conflict. And when I say conflict, it's not responsible for, you know, George Bush deciding, I want some of that oil. It's responsible for the conflict that arose because of that, when a lot of that information got leaked, and we saw videos of attack helicopters blowing up journalists and stuff. So everybody kind of like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, this is my government? Is this what I voted for? So that's where we're at. And now we're at another technological leap in that chain, and that's artificial intelligence. I don't think it's an intelligence. We could more accurately call it a virtual intelligence, but again, it's going to put a lot of people out of work. It's not going to put plumbers out of work. It's not going to put carpenters out of work. But you don't want to be an artist or a filmmaker or anything like that. You're just going to put a bunch of clips in and say, hey, artificial intelligence, render me this video. Or you're not even going to want to come out to the lake. You're going to say, hey, artificial intelligence, render me a video talking about a whole bunch of nonsense in the middle of a lake. And then you're going to go push a button and your bagel's going to pop out of the toaster. And you're going to push another button and your coffee's going to be made for you. Maybe by an AI toaster, who knows? I could be best friends with a toaster in the future, who knows? Yeah, so you're going to do that, and then when you come back, and by the time you finish your bagel, your video is going to be made. You upload it to YouTube. You probably won't even need to do that. The AI will be, oh, hey Lloyd, I got your video finished. You want me to upload that to YouTube? Sure. You want me to age restrict it? No, it's just me on a lake. Well, they're probably going to age restrict it anyway, Lloyd, because they don't like you. Okay, well, whatever. Do your thing, AI robot friend. Yeah, so that's the kind of things that the old AI is going to be doing. So my advice is become a plumber. Save more people than even doctors in the course of history. So if you're a young fella or an old fella and you're wondering why is the world crazy? Well, the world was always crazy. We just happened to grow up, some of us anyway, in the post-World War II era, which was, for the first time in human history, not so crazy. And then about 1995 came along and it slowly started getting crazy again. And then about 2008 came along and it started getting crazy faster. And then 2016 came along and everybody was like, oh my God, this president guy that we loved for the last 20 years, now we hate him, and the world got even crazier still. And here we are in 2025, and the guy that everybody doesn't like is in the office again, over there in Maine and other parts of the US. And so the world is crazy. Half the country likes him and half the country hates him. Down in the States, they elected the Don, and nobody likes him. Well, some people like him because they elected him, but anyway, the world's going crazy. So that's why we come out to places like this. So we're in this era of time now where we're post-World War II. In post-World War II, it was the most peaceful, productive time in human history that we know of. And now we're post that. We're post-World War II. And so everything's falling apart. The boomers that inherited the world from the people that built this system, and they were too busy having free love and drugs and parties and going to rock concerts. And well, now they're all selling their houses to investment firms and buying motorhomes and going on cruises all the time. Screw you, Gen X and millennials. We're taking it with us. Oh, fair enough. So it's a tough time, especially for the young kids. and it will drive you to despair. Some of my friends are in their 30s, and you know, they're not on the property ladder. The landlord can just evict them, tear down the property because they don't want to deal with it, or they think that they can sell the land to some developer for more money. So hundreds of families in that neighborhood down in Halifax are affected, and they're not building any new ones. So the rent price goes up, and it will drive you to despair unless you find a way to positively view the world. So everybody needs to be doing something like this. You don't need to be doing this exactly, but you need to be doing something like this. Because if you're not, well, you'll be like that fellow that jumped off the bridge in front of my truck, landed on the pavement, looked like a ketchup packet somebody stepped on. Well, that's no good. Seems like a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Well, that's where a lot of people are at. They are in great distress and despair because the world is crazy. And not everybody has the skills and tools to make it, because those leaps forward in technology that I was talking about, they rob people of their agency. Very few people know how to use an axe. And they say, but Lloyd, I don't need to know how to use an axe. Maybe if you learned, you'd feel better about yourself. Because, well, at least I know how to use an axe. The world's going crazy, but I know how to cut wood. Got to be a useful skill to somebody. So I guess after talking this long about not much, the one thing that you can take away from it, if you can take away anything, is all those future skills are going to be automated. And the skills of the past are going to be the ones that get you through the world gone mad. So gardening, raising your own vegetables, having a couple chickens, they make eggs. Getting yourself a pressure cooker, not an electric one that you can plug in, old school pressure cooker that if you had to, you could use it on a campfire. Get yourself some mason jars, and anytime you've got leftovers, you put it in the mason jars. Anytime you've got excess produce from your garden, no matter what it is, you put it in the mason jars, you put it in the pressure cooker, and it lasts for years. That is a valuable skill to have. Learn how to use tools that do not require electricity. I don't think the electricity is going to go out, but sometimes a hurricane comes through and the hydro goes out for 6 weeks. And that's when you need to drill a hole. And that's when your cordless is dead. So you get out your bracing bit and you drill a hole by hand. And these are the kind of skills that are going to make you feel human. To be human is to have an intimate relationship with the unforgiving. This lake below me, I don't swim that well. It is unforgiving. It killed that moose. It has killed others. I learned how to canoe because I was afraid of water. I wanted to have an intimate relationship with the unforgiving. And now I do. And not just with this lake, but many other things. And because of that, I know that whatever this crazy old world throws at me, well, probably be able to handle it. I'm getting older. My health has not been the best. But I know a bunch of young kids that at least value some of the things that I know. And I might know how to use that handsaw effectively, little techniques. I might know how to use that bracing bit effectively with little techniques, or the axe. And I can teach people that, which I do. Some of them even appreciate it. And then, in my old age, if the world is still crazy, maybe, just maybe, they'll have learned those things, and they'll be so kind as to make me a plate of steak and potatoes and mushrooms and sweet peppers every now and again. And if not, well, what have I lost? I had a fun life. I did things the old-fashioned way. Nothing wrong with that. The world always works out. Even if a bunch of people get cranky with one another and start lobbing nuclear weapons around, the world will still be here. Some of us will be too. It won't be the investment bankers and Wall Street executives. It'll be the hunter-gatherers in the Amazon and the Kalahari bushmen, and some Appalachian rednecks, a few weirdo Canadians like myself. We might have 11 toes, but eventually things will get back to normal. So do not despair. In the long run, everything works out. The world keeps on turning. And your life might be hard, but others have had it harder. And you got flush toilets and ice cream. And the biggest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people that they should despair. There's no reason to despair. As long as you get up every morning and you're breathing, bones might hurt, but you're breathing. And where there is life, there is hope. And one day I will be gone, but this lake will still be here. Thousands of years ago, the natives paddled their canoes on this lake, and I am now. And 1,000 years from now, somebody somewhere will be paddling this lake. It might shape differently, and their canoe's probably going to be pretty cool. It's probably going to be made out of like spider goat silk and be 18 feet long and weigh 20 pounds or something. So that'd be kind of cool to see, but yeah, things are not so bad that you need to despair. Think of all the things that you've seen in your life. Now, to be fair, if you're 20, all that you have seen on the internet the entirety of your life is police beating truckers and missiles flying into people and drones slamming into people and people yelling at one another on TV, and this guy's bad and that guy's bad, doom and gloom. Don't believe them. Turn off the TV, get off the internet, flip your phone upside down, go outside, pick up a stick and do something with it. Maybe carve a paddle, rent a canoe, learn something, do something. When you get outside, you'll find there's so many awesome things, from awesome sticks to awesome rocks, and awesome lakes, and awesome trees, and there's just so much for you to do, so much for you to learn, so much for you to discover and explore. In the internet doesn't even work out here. Isn't that great? But thanks to the marvels of technology, I can bring it with me, and then I can edit this video when I get home, and I can share this lake with you. And that's not such a bad thing. I can share with you my intimate relationship with the unforgiving. So now I've just paddled about a big kilometer long, maybe more, big circle. Now I'm back at camp. Now my arms are working, so I think I'll get some firewood and make some breakfast. So I'm gonna make some coffee here. Gotta get the fire going while the bass boat sputters by. And this is your typical campsite here, out on this lake. They see a lot of use from fishermen, so you'll maintain it and you'll get it exactly the way that you want. And somebody will come along and change the rocks. That's kind of what you do. This metal grate's kind of been a fixture here for, I don't know, like the last 25 years. I don't know what it was, but sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't, but it's seen better days. And then also the fishermen are not necessarily very good about policing up their bones when they catch fish, so I found some. I'm going to burn that off. Just keeps the raccoons out of your camp and other critters, both big and small. So yeah, let this burn down, throw the old coffee pot on it. When you're working with fire, it's not a bad idea to have some gloves on. Nothing any less fun in the world than having second-degree burns on your hands in the middle of the trip. So these are like some leather welder's gloves. They're not like the big long ones, but I don't know, welder's gloves, can't go wrong. Like I say, wouldn't be able to do that otherwise. So everybody's got a different way of making coffee. This is mine. I put the water on and I start to get it warm. I'm not making that much, but it's big enough for 2 jugs if I want. Just take my measuring spoons and I'll put in, what's this, 15 milliliter tablespoon. There we go. About 3 of those. Fill the water up to about midway the spout on this one. You can kind of hear the coffee pot starting to boil. Put the lid on. You have to adjust it back or forward on the hanging stick if it starts to boil over. You don't want that. This coffee I'm using is a Canadian coffee company out of Ontario called Balzac's Coffee. It's a dark roast, which I quite like. Comes in the cans instead of the bags. The bags, you throw them away, and well, they're garbage. And these cans, I've got everything you can imagine in these cans, from screws to barley and rice, and anyway. So every YouTuber on the planet seems to be selling coffee these days. I'm not, but if you're in Canada, can't go wrong with this. 100% Arabica, it means. I don't know, I guess that means it's probably Somalian coffee or something. I don't know. If you're a proper cowboy, you'd be using Arbuckle's coffee down in the States, but we can't get that up here unless you want to pay the government GST and border fees as soon as it crosses the border. So I don't know, this is pretty good. So when I look down the spout, that coffee's starting to boil. Once it starts to boil, you want to leave it on kind of like a rolling boil for about 2 minutes. Even if you're making it on the stove at home, let it
do a rolling boil for about 2 minutes, and what it's going to do is it's going to knock down the acidity in the coffee. A lot of people can't drink coffee because of stomach issues. But once you got the coffee made, if you boil it for a couple of minutes, not till it boils over, but just a nice rolling boil, it's going to destroy that acid in it. Don't ask me how it works. I'm not a chemist, but it does. And if you've got digestive issues like myself, it certainly helps. I never used to drink coffee, but now I do. It's great stuff. Highly recommend it.
Well, they say a watch pot never boils, but well, when you turn your back, it boils over. So when you're done, some people put a little cold water in to settle the grounds. All the coffee grinds go to the bottom. I myself like to go one step further. I've been experimenting with coffee presses, and most of them don't cut it, they break. Got this one at Canadian Tire, manufactured by Woods, and it's good for the kind of canoe camping that I do. It's just big enough. You can get Yetis and Stanleys and stuff like that, which is great if you got like a bigger group. For one fella, or two fellas, or a guy and a gal, or two gals, it's current year. This one from Canadian Tire, made by Woods. Do everything you want it to do, and it's all metal, no plastic in it. It's got kind of like a tea cozy on it. Ooh, spilled some. So yeah, you can wait for this before you press it, or you can just press it, which is exactly what I'm going to do. Got a little bit too much in here. And the way that I drink my coffees with maple syrup, which is pretty decadent, but I can't have sugar anymore. Some people just drink it black. Sometimes I do if I don't have maple syrup, but I do today. And if you get one of these larger enamel cups, this thing fits right inside of it, so it's pretty good packing. So it's probably about, what, 8:30, 9 o'clock now. Got my breakfast fire going. Got a cup of coffee on. And I got more in here, so might want more later. Do that up too. And then this is kind of like a thermos. It'll keep your coffee warm for a certain amount of time. And then you want to block off the evaporation. You kind of turn the thing. I don't think it works 100%. Nothing works 100%. But does what I want. And now I got a coffee that got a little bit of sweetness to it. Kind of mapley lumberjack coffee. And it's not acidic at all. You swallow that. Just the boiling it really helps out. So that's not how everybody makes coffee, but that's how I do. So, little campsite tour is Maine over there. That island's Canada. Everything over here is New Brunswick, Canada. All the way around. And this here's my old boat. Novacraft Chrome, yay. Deck plate broke off, but it still floats. Good boat, a few thousand miles on it. So we're on the east side of the island. Coming up the path to the campsite. This campsite's called Upper Todd Island. And you can see we're on a point. There is the western side of the island. Big old birch tree that's been there for 100 years. Camp chairs. The venerable old campfire. And cooking picnic table with a bunch of stuff on it. And a tripod. And girlfriend's life jacket. Got the platypus. Got my hammock strung up. Faithful old hat. Some more gear. Pelican case with a can in it. Olive barrel. Olive barrels are really, really good for putting electronics in. Anything you don't want wet, they seal up. They hold olives wet. They'll hold your stuff dry. Yeti bottle. I don't like the Yeti bottles. This thing here screws on. You need to get a pipe wrench to get it off. So, Yeti, if you're listening, make it an octagon. This here's a Woods bottle from Canadian Tire. I like it better for a number of reasons. You don't need a pipe wrench to get the top off. Toxic waste barrels. Old canvas packs. There's a Romanian bread bag there. It's an army bread bag that they use. A U.S. Forestry Service bag. Another barrel. Hatchet that my friend John from Scotland gave me many, many years ago, 2006, 2007. Been with me ever since. Some paddles. Dry bag with toilet paper and stuff in it. A very old Duluth pack, and the bags that the camp chairs come in. And the old Woods A-frame. It's not a Eureka Timberline, but it works. Past the bathroom. Western side of the island. And that's New Brunswick to that point. And everywhere over there, that is Maine. And that's where I'm staying. So this here's my life jacket. It's got a knife on it, which I think I've used once. Mostly I use it to cut fishing line that I find. And in the top pocket here, I got one of those hand warmer things. I used to do a lot of whitewater in like March and April. It's cold. So if somebody dunked themselves, you could give them that to start to warm up. And then also there's one of these silver emergency blankets that you could wrap around them if they were getting hypothermic. It keeps some heat in until you got a fire going anyway. Pretty much nothing in this life jacket gets used, but that's what I carry anyway. Got a compass. Sometimes you're going across a lake and it's foggy and you can't see where you're going. So if you thought ahead and took a bearing on where you're going, you could just follow the compass needle the whole way. And then in this pocket, this is a little tiny water filtration system. I've never used it. It's more like the MSR ones that you have to pump. So I don't even know if it works, but I suppose I could make it work in an emergency. It's pretty hard to get out, so I'll just leave it as is. But yeah, in an emergency, I guess I could figure out a way to make that work. And, well, if it was a really big emergency, I guess I wouldn't be too concerned with purifying the water. What else is in there? We got a patch kit for my sleeping pad, a little bit of contact cement, 2 patches, and then a new cover for the bell in case you lose that. It's in that pocket. A couple of 20-year-old Walmart Kool-Aid mixes, I guess, sports drink mixes. So those should probably be sacrificed to the campfire. And this is like a travel cup for brushing your teeth or whatever. And I just put it in there. Sometimes you get thirsty on the lake and your water bottle is empty. And then over here on the other side, we got some guy line. Every now and again you need a piece of guy line. And then I got a whistle in here, signal whistle. It's important if you see an accident on the lake. And then there's a bug net in here. There's nothing any worse than getting into a black fly bug. If you're going to buy a bug net and use it, make sure you get a black one because the green one's harder to see out of. And then in this pocket there's a pair of kind of like rubberized gloves if you have to like move rocks around or something like that, or firewood, or it's wet. And then there's a flint and magnesium fire starter in there, and a 35-year-old, 40-year-old pocket knife. So that's in there. So basically, if you were to dump your canoe on a whitewater river, there's everything in here to make your day a little bit more endurable until your friends come back and get you. And if you don't have friends, well, it's better than nothing, isn't it? So my Groman knife here, which has been with me for, I don't know, 20 years. About that. About as dull as a hoe. I mean, it's pretty sharp for most people's knives, I guess, but I like it a bit sharper. And in the field, I just kind of clean up the blade a bit with one of these things. It says Gatco on it. Anyway, I'm sure there's all kinds of manufacturers of these things. It's got a medium carbide sharpener on one end, and then fine ceramic on the other. And it's got little rubberized feet on both sides. So basically what you do is you sit it on the picnic table like so, and then you draw your knife through it. And Groman steel is pretty hard unless you're getting the high carbon steel blades. So you might have to find the perfect angle. Plus this is kind of like an oval blade, works better with straight edge knives. But you can kind of feel it cut in and start to take some slivers off where you wreck the edge. And you get the right angle and repair your edge. What you're looking for is kind of like a pretty consistent scraping drag. That's probably enough. Yeah, it feels a little bit better. One more for good luck. It's the same idea as those turkey carving sets you might have in your kitchen. It's got kind of like a sharpener built into the case. And then on the other side, you just use the fine ceramic. And draw the knife through it a couple of times. Usually 5 on one side, 5 on the other is enough, but whatever seems good to you. And that will clean up the edge of your knife when you're in the field. You can use a whetstone as well. I got whetstones that I use for other knives, but this I mostly use for food prep. And so I just treat it like a kitchen knife. It's not a survival knife. We're not surviving out here. We're having a good time. So you might not want to do this to your $500 bushcraft knife with somebody's name engraved on the side, but this is what I do, and keeps it sharp. When I'm cutting my steak at night or opening up packages, it doesn't snag or anything. Anyway, it's not a bad knife for what I paid for it. Because of inflation and the fact that our rulers are trying to drive the prices of everything through the roof, so we can't have it. It still remains a pretty good knife for the money. I've heard a couple of reviews recently that the quality's gone downhill. So my advice is do your research before you buy anything, and if you get lucky, find yourself an antique knife, because when things are made by machines and CNC computers, they just, they don't work with the material, they just do exactly what they're programmed to do. So if you can get a handmade knife, a guy that is putting the handle on, he's gonna select the proper piece of wood, or if it's got a knot in it, he might work around it, and you can tell it'll be a bit wonky because he's left a little bit of wood in around where that knot is, where he's got to drill the rivet through. And if it's handmade, it might not be 100%. You might look at it, it might be a little bit off on one side. Most modern customers would find that intolerable, but that's the kind of thing that I like, because I know that it was made by somebody that knows what they're doing, as opposed to, put a piece of steel in a machine, set all the dials and then just run it back and forth and let the machine do the work. Not that you can't make a good knife that way, and Groman certainly makes a really, really good product, especially the flat grind. It's excellent for food prep, and you can get a really good edge on it. And you can, I live in Nova Scotia, so I can take it back to the factory anytime I want and get them to put a factory edge. They charge like, I don't know, like $5 or $10 or something. But as for keeping an edge on it, one of these things works pretty good. So I managed to lose the wedge out of my hatchet here. Not sure how, but it's dry when things dry out. The old timers used to soak their axes in a bucket of water. It would tighten them up, they would swell. But anyway, after almost 20 years on the trail, the wedge came out of this, and the pin did too. So with the old silky saw here, and it cut me a new wedge out of maple. And that should get me home. I just drive that in there like so, and come on over here. And then I'll just cut the wedge off. Gotta be careful with a big saw like this. You don't run it into your leg or something. They're pretty sharp. So there we go. Easy as that. So that wedge will get me home, and then I can put a proper one in. As you can see, the axe mask is a little worse for wear here. The rivets all came out, so I kind of put some lace through there, punched a hole in it. Anyway, not important. And the rivet came out here, so I punched some lace in it, and then I lent it to somebody one time that decided to try to pound in tent pegs with it, and they did a number on the strap, but it still works. And then somebody else at a campfire one time picked up my hatchet with the axe mask on it and started moving around hot coals with it, so kind of burned the leather. And at some point I might get around to doing a real repair job on this, but It's got a whole lot of field repairs on it, and it still keeps on ticking. So the only thing I did, I put a little loop on it here, so I don't know, I can like hang it up or something. If it's raining, I can hang it from the ridge line. So anyway, there's the hatchet fixed. And it seems I never have time to do stuff like this when I'm around home. When I go camping, I got lots of time to catch up on fix-it jobs, stuff like that. I really enjoy going camping.
So my pot set from years gone by went by the wayside. So I bought this new set from Woods, Canadian Tire. And it's got these collapsing handles with high temperature silicone on it, which is pretty cool. I still use gloves with them. But this one here, it wouldn't fit in the stacking formation, so I took the silicone off. Now it's got this little tiny teapot, which is useless, but you can put your little bag in there. And I don't know, if you're doing like a Japanese tea ceremony or something, it's the perfect size, but it is not what I would call a working man size teapot. And then it all nests together like so. You gotta put the lid down, put the catch down, and then it sits inside this frying pan. And the frying pan has got those silicone coated handles as well. And it all goes in that bag. And I forget what I paid for it. I think it was like 75 bucks or something, but I don't know, not bad. Good little rig. Time to fill up the old coffee jug with the platypus. I don't know if the platypus does anything, but you fill it up, you filter water comes out the tube in your coffee pot. So, no rocket surgery. Whether the filtering is important is anyone's guess. I've drunk this lake for years, but now I filter it because we can. So here's some cowboy bacon I made. Basically, you rub pork belly with mixture of salt and sugar and a little bit of frog powder. Kind of like the medieval bacon I made a couple of years back on video. But this one, the sugar kind of cuts some of the salty taste out of it. So kind of a early 20th century recipe, I guess. But it's shelf stable, so it'll last a day or two out here in the food barrel. You don't have to refrigerate it, but I freeze it and vacuum seal it. Anyway, good stuff. I'm going to cook some of that up. The old hat's seen better days. Looks like it's been through the Boer War. Correct me if I'm wrong, internet people, but I think this hat was invented for the Boer War. It's an Australian military hat. You can pin the side up like so. That way, if you're on horseback, you can take your rifle over your shoulder without knocking your hat off. All the ribbon on the edge is all gone to hell. I took the original hat band off. It's a bunch of folds. I took the pin off of it. And of course the lining is all gone. The army guys usually cut the lining out. 1983 British military arrow there, size 58. I glued some leather in there because, well, it had punched through in the brim and had worn out. And I think this hat band is off in a Cobra, I want to say a Cattleman. And well, one of my girlfriends stole it because, well, I guess she wanted it more than me. But anyway, I kept the hat band and put it on this. And I went out and I spent $450 Canadian on a brand new Cobra territory. Big wide brim hat to replace this. I was going to retire this, but just couldn't do it. So, if you ever see me canoeing, please come and beat me up and steal my hat. Otherwise, they're going to bury me with this. So, here on Spednic Lake, there's quite a bit of history here. You go back thousands and thousands of years. The native people here, Canada and US, of course those divisions didn't exist then. They fished here and camped here. In fact, about 2 miles directly behind me there's a campsite they called Diggity. They did an archaeological dig there and found all kinds of artifacts and put up a monument there. 100 years ago there were steamboats on this lake. They put up several dams on this waterway. Very, very important, you know, in 200 years ago, 18th century, 19th century, when freight canoes were the only way to move things around. But by the 1900s, logging was pretty important, and there were vast logging operations on this lake, and they would drive the logs down. I would assume they would raft them up here on the lake. But there were steamboats here, and the railway, of course, came through. 1901 to 1906, 1907, they built the railway station in Macadam, which is a couple miles from here. And it looks like a Scottish castle. It's absolutely beautiful. So if you're ever in this area, it's worth checking out. Yeah, the dams they built, most of them have minor hydroelectric projects on them to run local businesses, typically like mills and factories and stuff like that. But yeah, there were steamboats on this lake, and well, now it's mostly pleasure craft, bass boats, pontoon party boats. Canoeists come out here. There's a couple of guiding operations, both on the Canadian side and on the American side. And the entire waterway goes from North Lake, probably 30 kilometers north of here, and then there's a little section of the St. Croix River that goes under Forest City, and it can be kind of fun. There's a little whitewater section there, and there's a rock under the bridge that kind of wipes some people out. I've never had any trouble getting by it, but anyway, it's a fun little section. And then below that is Mud Lake, and Mud Lake is it's a small lake. It's good size, but it takes you, you know, an hour, 45 minutes or so to paddle across it. And on the top of that is Mud Lake Falls, which you portage around. And I was on a trip with 2 guys, and both good friends, and they were looking at it and saying, well, you run it, well, you run it, you run it. Meanwhile, I just portage the gear around it, and I'm like, okay, well, the gear's all around it. I'm going to portage it. If you guys want to run it, go ahead. You could probably run it in one of those little tiny whitewater kayaks, the ones that are turned up in the front end. I wouldn't want to take a 17-foot canoe over it. I'm not made of that stuff. So if those guys could run it, they're a better man than I am. But that's kind of fun. And below that, there's another little section of whitewater. I was guiding another trip one time with a buddy from Scotland and 2 guys from England, and it was a lot of fun. And it's kind of a rock garden, and the boys in the canoe behind us, I picked my way through it pretty good, and they managed to fill up with water and had to walk out of there, and one was laughing the whole way, and the other was kind of embarrassed that he had to walk. But anyway, it was all good fun. And then after that, you get into the top part of Spednic Lake, probably 15 or 20 miles away from here, and then you can pick your way down the campsites from there. In fact, when I was on that trip with those 3 guys from England, about 2 campsites in the Spednic Lake here, one of them comes to me and says, I think I left my cell phone back up on East Grand Lake, and well, I think I know how we can get there. So
we paddled to the top of Spednic Lake and then took out of the boat launch and walked across the road back to the campsite on the other side. And sure enough, we found his cell phone laying there on the beach. It had fallen out of his pocket when we were putting it in the morning. And then we paddled our way all the way back down. So, but then you get here to Upper Todd, and it's a nice little spot when you're doing the whole trip to just kind of sit around for a couple days. It's up on a point, it's windy, you got water on both sides, there's not too many bugs, it's a good spot to dry out gear. And then you can follow this lake down until the next dam down by the border crossing. And then you can get into the St. Croix River, and it's all moving water. There's some dead sections, but I enjoy those too. They're peaceful. It's a great spot to throw in a line if you're into fishing. And there's really only a couple of sets of whitewater on that. There's some like little class 1 and 2 rips here and there, but big falls, or little falls, yeah, little falls. Wouldn't be very much fun to go through if it was called big falls. Little falls, it's kind of got like a little island in the middle, or at least a bunch of rocks and trees. And so on the Canadian side, it's a little bit more technical. You have to zigzag around. And then on the American side, it's just kind of like a little ledge that you drop over. I tend to like to go through the Canadian side because I like to zigzag around and do the draws and pries and all that stuff. So yeah, that's kind of fun. And then you get down. There's a few campsites down there. There's English Cove is one of my favorites. Horse Island is another good campsite down there. And then you come to what's called the Canoe ledges, and again, it's basically a drop. It's just a ledge that runs across the whole river. There's not too much to it. You just kind of set up where you're going to go. I imagine in high water it pushes up some big haystacks and stuff, and that would be fun if you're outfitted for it. And then after that, I usually take out at Grand Falls Flowage, and the rest of the river down to St. Stephen. There's some more big whitewater down there, but I've never done the lower section because it kind of goes through people's backyards and goes through the downtown of St. Stephen and Calais. So yeah, it's a good river system. It's a good place to bring people that are beginners because it's got a wide variety of things to teach them. And then you're never too far from, if somebody hurts themselves or something like that, or, somebody's like, okay, I'm all done, I'm not doing this anymore. It's you're never more than a day to get them out of it. And then the whitewater section is a good river to learn on as well, because you've got lots of time between those two rapids to explain things to them, and there's lots of little places where you can teach. Oh, well, that's a rock, and this is how you get by it, and you've only got to miss it by an inch. You don't have to miss it by a mile, and if you get sideways, well, you want to lean to the downriver side so the water doesn't come in your boat, and try to push yourself off it, and all those little learning moments. So anyway, yeah, it's a really great spot to come. I haven't been here for probably 8 years, maybe 5, maybe 8. I don't know. Your memory starts to go on you. One day blurs into the next when you work crazy hours. So I haven't been here for quite a while, and I'm just really glad to be back. It's just kind of a load off, and the cell phones don't work, and children's camp went by on their canoe trip today and got to talk to them, and some of them were more cheerful than others, and some people had managed to get their canoe upside down. And there's bass boats and fishermen came by, and some fellows from the Waterway Commission came through and checked out the campsite this morning. The St. Croix Waterway Commission, they kind of maintain all the campsites and make sure that there's no trees blown down, and they make sure that the idiots didn't leave garbage behind, and they make sure that all of the toilet boxes are up to snuff. So really appreciate what those guys do. So you can check them out on the interweb if you want, the St. Croix Waterway Commission, and then they'll give you a better history of the river system than I could. And you can buy maps of the lake system from them as well if you're not an old veteran that's got the whole thing memorized. But even I make mistakes. I came up the wrong side of an island the other day and wasn't quite sure where I was, and paddled past my campsite by about a kilometer. Oh, wait a minute, this doesn't look right. I've been here before. This is not my campsite, and you have to paddle back. So no matter how experienced you are, bring a map, bring a compass, because you never know, it gets foggy sometimes. And anyway, yeah, hit up their website, see what you think. And if you're planning a trip here, definitely pick up one of the maps. The boys were saying that they're redoing the maps to make them a little bit more accurate, so that all the campsites are in the right spots, and all of the depths are correct for the guys that are running motorboats that don't want to run into rocks, and all the rapids are in the right spot. So those guys do good work. If you get a chance, check out their website, and if you're thinking about coming here, buy one of their maps. I don't know what they are now, but they're not expensive. It's a map, you know. It's not a new car. Well, supper's done. Take a cracker. Scoop out some cheese. I don't know what kind of cheese it is, but it's good cheese. On my little charcuterie birch bark. I'm going to put some sausage on it. And then we'll have a sausage and cheese cracker for supper. So, that's pretty good. So, no better way to spend a day. Sun's going down out here on Spednic Lake, stuffing myself with tasty food. So that's all we got. Battery's dying on the camera anyway, so I'm not going to shoot anymore. If you like the channel, hit the like button. If you like a lot, hit the subscribe button. And if you don't like it, share it with your enemies. I will punish them for free.